This may very well be the biggest dresser I have ever refinished. It's massive. The behemoth, I'm calling it. It's a 15 drawer dresser. This is a gorgeous dresser. I just love that serpentine front. I love the style of it. It's really cool. This is a custom project for a client. They've been searching and searching for a huge dresser, and they finally found one on Marketplace and they brought it straight to me. So we knew what the plan was for this one moving forward. And the first thing I need to do is get all these drawers out, and hardware galore. So anything you do, you have to do it 15 times, and it's a bit much. Some of these drawers did not want to come out, and I'll show you why in a moment, but get all the hardware off, and then it's the kind that you really have to give it a good pull to get it to disengage. Once I got all the drawers out, it was time for a good cleaning, and you'll see that I don't have all of the dust shelves in between, so I don't have a ton to clean, but I still just want to get everything that I can cleaned up. And once I get this done, I'm going to move on to the drawer guides themselves, although they're a little tricky to work with. So this is a little carriage that has ball bearings. It actually connects to the bottom of the drawer and moves back and forth with the drawer itself. Sometimes the drawers just go on a guide or in between wood and things like that. This one actually connects to this carriage and it moves back and forth on it. It does have grease on it, and I'm just cleaning parts of it, but you don't want to remove all of the grease from this because that does help lubricate the ball bearings as they move back and forth. Just want to make sure everything is operating smoothly, but they're a little tricky. I try not to remove the drawers in and out too much with guides like this, just because those balls can pop out of there and then you actually have to replace that whole guide. They're a little hard to find. Okay, we're moving on to the drawers, and there are 9 drawers that have bale style pulls that we're going to be replacing. All the hardware is getting changed out, but those in particular I have to fill in because when you have a bale style pull, those holes are they're not in the center of the drawer because they're allowing for that drop. And so I've got a long pull that's going on here, and then of course it needs to be centered in the drawer. I'm mixing up some Bondo, and that blue stuff that I put in there, because I get asked all the time, what is that? That is the hardener. It's like the activator. It causes the chemical process to start. I'm mixing up a whole bunch of it, and you have to be careful when you do this, because if you mix up a whole bunch of it and you're not moving really fast, it'll set up and you never got a chance to use it and you have to waste it. So I'm not looking like I'm moving with urgency, but I probably need to get a move on here. I've got a lot of drawers to fill in. So once I get this mixed up, I'm going to start putting it into the holes, and I like to press it into the holes so that the hole is filled from front to back. And yes, sometimes it does push all the way through, and I'll show you later on in the video because it did happen on a few of them. I'll show you how I deal with that. But I've got 9 drawers here that I'm going to be replacing all of those and drilling new holes, so I've got to get all of that filled in. I'll have to see if I make it to the end here without my Bondo setting up on me since I mixed so much, but it looks like I made it. Okay, while that's hardening up, I'm going to start some scuff sanding. I have a 120 grit sanding net on here. You can use a sanding net or sanding paper. Either one works fine. 120 grit is pretty universal for me. That's what I tend to lean towards for scuff sanding. And then I switched to my detail sander with that interface pad on there to do any of these curved areas. And you could certainly just do this with some type of a sanding pad by hand if you don't have a fancy sander like this. It certainly does make quick work of this, but I know it's not always in the budget. So there are lots of sanding sponges and things out there that work great in areas like this. So I'm just working my way over this entire dresser. Again, this dresser is massive and it's going to take a little bit of time to do this scuff sanding. I'm just going to go one ridge at a time back and forth across this area since everything is kind of curved, and I must be listening to music today because I'm bouncing around. You know, people ask me all the time, what are you listening to? Because I always have my AirPods in, and I'm usually listening to audiobooks. Once in a while, I will put some tunes on and just be bopping away, working, having a good time. All right, the detail sander is wonderful for areas like this, and I'm really going to be able to get this part covered pretty quickly. With the serpentine, it has lots of curves and You know, it's just such a cool design. I love it when they show up with things you're like, yes, I know this is exactly what you guys were looking for. It's so perfect. This gives you a good idea of why these detail sanders, you probably see them all over, but why do we use them? It's because of that. The way that those contour to the details and the rounded edges, it's such a huge time saver. And when you work at this volume and you do so many pieces, it really does make a big difference. Okay, I don't have drawers in this, and it is still just a heavy, heavy dresser. This thing is solid. And I'm going to lay this down, and I'm positioning my dollies because when I lay them down on the dollies. Now, this area is something that my clients wanted to remove. It's funny how just small little details like that can really make a piece look dated. And I'm just drawing on here where I'm going to trim, and I just freehand it. There's no real magic to it. Once in a while I have an area where I have something, a jar or something where I feel like I can do it, but that one I was able to just freehand. So this is a jigsaw. I'm using a fine tooth saw blade in there, and I'm just going to make, this is super thick, so this is going to be slow going, and you can see I'm holding my vacuum there just for dust extraction. Otherwise I have to keep blowing on it so that I can see the line. But if I hold my shop vac right there, it actually sucks all the sawdust away so I can continue to see where it is that I'm supposed to be sawing. But my blade is getting hot already. So I'm just trying to cool it off with the vacuum, and I keep having to take it out because it starts smoking. I'm like, I'm going to start a fire. But just removing that one little bit, it just makes such a big difference. So same thing over here, and we'll just get those details off of there, and then I give them a good sanding just to get everything nice and evened out, smooth. It's funny how that just makes such a big difference. I love it. It looks so much better, and the bonus is I didn't even start any fires, even though it was smoking. Okay, moving on to these dents and dings. Now, this dresser, of course, is used. So glazing and spot putty is your friend with things like this. You know, people move furniture and they get moved from room to room or house to house, and things happen, and the vacuum cleaner and all kinds of stuff. So we usually have to go over them. And this one has little dents and dings everywhere. So the glazing and spot putty is such a better product. I feel like a better product than just regular wood filler because it really clings to everything. Now, wood filler, sometimes you put it on something like that, like just a dent, and you go to sand it and it just disappears. Or you wipe it down to get, you know, all the dust off. It disappears because it wipes out. This is not a water-based product, so it doesn't wipe off when you're dusting everything, and it really sands down nicely. Okay, this area is all kind of torn up, just probably from moving it or laying it down, or who knows. But I looked up here and I'm like, oh, it doesn't have any little nylon feet at all. Let's fix that. And I know these feet seem like kind of a minor little thing, like why are they so important? But they really are. Even just moving it around on the floor, the dresser can cause damage, but it helps to keep them up off the floor if your carpets get wet, or if you have a house that has a slab. There's a little bit of moisture in the concrete, and so it can damage wood over time. So if you can, always replace the little nylon feet. All right, moving on to the drawers. This Bondo is now all set up, so I'm going to have to sand everything down smooth. All of the drawers need to be scuff sanded, but all of these Bondoed areas need to get smoothed as well. So I'm using my detail sander for this because, as you can see, these drawers, some are curved, convex, and some are concave. And so the orbital sander would just kind of make a mess of it. So I really need to do it with the detail sander. I would probably be doing that by hand. My orbital sander would just tear that up. And then I switched to the interface pad because I can do all of these edges quite a bit faster since I don't have to do them by hand. And if I was doing them by hand, I'd be using a sanding sponge. So I'll be using a sanding sponge later when I'm doing the in-between coat sanding. So I'll show you that in a little bit. And here they are. All 15 drawers are sanded. Yay! Moving on. All right. I tend to have one thing usually drying or setting up and then move on to a different thing, and then I'll circle back. So now I'm circling back to all of the dents and dings and just getting all of those done. Okay, back over to the drawers. I have to make a custom template. So I usually use a jig. You know, you may see me using a jig on here when I need to put hardware on, because that gives me precise measurements every single drawer, and I know that once I get it set up I can do all the drawers quickly. Well, I can't use it here just because of the curvature of the drawers, so I'm having to make my own, and I'm using a piece of cardboard. I cut it to the exact depth or width of the drawer, of how tall it is, and now I'm just measuring out the spacing of my pole that's going to go on there, and then I will have to center it in the drawer on each one like that. So I'm just double checking that where I have the marks on there are really what the poles look like and they match. So I went ahead and drilled my little holes, and then all I'm going to do now is just make sure that I have it centered, and this is it. I've got a template. This is a measure 15 times and drill once. I don't want to have to do these over and over and over. I make that mistake sometimes and move too fast and then have to go back and fill them all in and do it. It's better to just spend the time. You'll see me measure, 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 make sure I'm in the center, and then go ahead and drill them. Now, just for fun, there are several drawers that are smaller, and I just have to make sure that I've got it in the center, both going up and down and side to side. Okay, now you can see where the Bondo pushed through the drawer. It just makes that little dimple there, and I'm just going to take an old chisel. You could use a screwdriver, you could use a putty knife, doesn't matter what it is. Just a couple little taps, and that just pops right off of there. Super easy. I don't do anything else to it. I mean, if it's rough or jagged, I would sand it a little, but then you're going to put some sanding marks on the drawer. So here's another one. There were a couple of them that had that. It's the easiest thing, and it just pop off. And yes, they do show on the back side of the drawer, but when the drawers are in, you never see that. I'm pretty sure you've probably never even looked at that side of the drawer. People ask me that, and I'm like, when's the last time you looked at the back side of the inside of the drawer? Yeah, it doesn't. Now I'm trying to stand this thing up, and I was like, oh, I underestimated the weight of it standing up, and I had to get into a better position before I dropped it. Okay, use your legs. Lift with your legs. I got it up there. This is heavy even without the drawers, so I back up on wheels because everything in my shop rolls. All right, once I get this back up on some wheels, it's time to give it a good cleaning, and Henry and Hudson decided they wanted to come and visit, so they're going to be here for this process. I don't always have them in the garage. If I'm working with a bunch of chemicals or too much sanding, they don't like the noise of the vac. And then, of course, chemicals and stuff, I try to keep them in the house, but out here for this, they're like, what are you doing, Mom? Okay, so I'm just going to wipe everything down, and I'm using a damp microfiber towel. I'm showing you some adjustable screws. I use those as temporary handles. And where do I get adjustable screws? I'll tell you, every time you buy new hardware, it comes with 2 screws. One that is probably the one you're going to use, and then that long adjustable that's there in case you need to just make a custom size. I never use those. I have hundreds of them. So I just use them as temporary handles. So these drawers, I'm just getting into their place. Now they were already marked, so I know where they go, but I'm just sort of resting them in the spot because, again, I don't want to mess with the guides. I'm going to wait until I get good and ready to put those back in. So I'm just taping up the dovetails. I don't want to get any overspray on them. When the sides of the drawers are stained, I really do avoid trying to get any paint or anything on those dovetails because it's harder to take off. You can't just sand it off. Okay, these guides, so you get them on the guides and you have to push them in repeatedly to get it to completely engage. So this took me an hour just to get that done. But here it is, all done. And you know, it looks kind of crazy sometimes before it goes into the tent. And I know it looks like I made it worse, but it's actually come a long way and ready for its makeover. So I'm just getting a good coat of primer on there. You'll notice I'm in the tent, and I'm in the tent in my garage. It is crazy weather outside, and I couldn't have the tent out there. So I had to make do and improvise and put it in the garage just to keep overspray off of everything else in my garage. So I'm working in sort of cramped quarters with a gigantic dresser. It's kind of crazy. Okay, I got the primer all sanded, and there's a seam that's just sticking out, and I hate that. So they don't look good when they're painted. I put caulking on there, and I give it a light mist with just some water, and then I use my finger to smooth everything out. And once that dries, it needs to get primed, and it will look amazing. So I let it dry, primed it again, and now I'm just getting my paint ready. I add a little water to it, and I make it probably like syrup, sort of a thin syrup. Did I measure it? No. Do I ever measure it? No. I just kind of go by the feeling of it. I wish I had a good formula or recipe for you, but after a while you just sort of get the consistency right, and I can just feel it. Okay, are you the kind of person that when you're doing coloring books, or was as a kid, did you outline everything first and then do it? Or were you one of those that just went rogue and just started coloring? You can tell which category I'm in. I outline everything. Here it is. Beautiful. I love the sprayed finish. This is my improvised tent inside. Oh, it's just kind of crazy working in there, but I'm making it happen. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. Okay. I was sanding down where the Bondo was, and I sanded through the original finish, of course. And what that does after you paint it is it allows the grain to show through. Well, that looks awful when it's painted, and you can't leave it like that. It'll never fill in with paint. So again, with the glazing and spot putty, because it's amazing stuff, and it will work so well in this application. And once you see I'm done with this, you're going to be amazed. I think you'll be amazed. But that little wood grain, you know, I see it sometimes where people leave that, and to me, it just bothers me. And I let that dry. I come back with the sanding sponge that's off of my sander. You could use the regular sponge, that's fine. See how nicely this stuff sands off? But what it's doing is it's filling in the grain. Look at that. That is pretty much a blemish, and that just filled it all in. Yes, I'm making a mess inside my spray tent. I'm going to have to clean it up before I keep going, or I'll have dust going everywhere. And there they are, all sanded. Once I get this cleaned up, I'm going to show you how well that actually filled in the grain. Here's my sanding sponge. And that is a sanding sponge I've been using for quite some time. It started out as 320 grit, and I have been using it so long, it is no longer 320. It's much smoother, but it really doesn't take much to smooth down the paint or the primer between coats. Now, that was not a water-based product that I put on there, that wood filler, so I can use my normal thing. This is a microfiber towel that's just barely damp, and I'm going to wipe everything down with it. And now you can see how much of that it filled in, and it is just so smooth. Now in between coats, I also go in and touch up the sides and tops of the drawers. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I am going to paint the dresser a couple more times just because I want to make sure that that area on the front of the drawer doesn't have just the one coat over it. Sometimes when you do that, you might have a little bit of a shadow. It may not show right now, but then you know, you get it, your top coat and everything on, you're like, I can kind of see a shadow. And so 2 coats really makes sure that that doesn't happen. Okay, once we get this painted, it's going to look amazing. I'll just put a nice even coat over it, and it's just disappearing. It really was, it stands out to me because I'm looking for it, but I just knew when I was sanding it that this was going to happen and I was going to have to do this. But I see them sometimes where people have refinished it and haven't filled in the grain and how distinct it is. But now you'd never know. You'd never know that it looked like that. I did another coat of paint, so I did 2 coats of paint, and this is top coat. Boy, spraying on top coat, especially on black, you just can't duplicate it. Now I've put the tent down. This is probably my 3rd coat of top coat. I do multiple layers. And yes, my top coat is tinted. I tint it with just a little bit of paint, and it's all dry. This is actually the next day, and I'm putting on the hardware, all 15. Those are so exact, I had to put them on by hand. But let's take a look back at where we started, the behemoth, and here we are now. This beautiful dresser is exactly what my clients wanted. It's big, it's bold, it's beautiful. And I'm so excited for them to have this piece that they've been looking for so long. I hope you like this piece as much as I do. These huge dressers are sure a lot of work, but boy, it is worth it because now my client has the dresser of her dreams. And if you're thinking about getting into furniture refinishing, my beginner's guide would be super helpful, as well as stripping furniture, tan washing, and where to buy furniture. Pick those up on my website if you're interested. Thanks for watching.